Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to POD, Plenty O Disney, my first top five, what I wanted to call my top five day, which comes out every Friday, but I did not release one this past Friday. So I'm going to release this one either today or tomorrow. Tomorrow is Tuesday, February 8th. And then I will also have another top five, hopefully this Friday. So my inaugural top five. I think I will start with an easy one since I'm not used to doing this. And I will start with my top five Marvel Cinematic Universe movies. You could probably could have guessed that seeing by my Spider-Man hoodie and my periodic table of Marvel. But this is in the order of my favorite Marvel movies. This is not in the order of what I consider to be the best Marvel movies. So it might be a little controversial because I know number four, I feel like more than 50% of the people are not going to agree with me. But again, this is my top five list, my favorite movies, and like I said, it's how I consider rewatchability, quality, definitely goes in there, but it has to do with more of what I can watch over and over and over. And remember, it's only five, so some were not on the list. And if you don't agree, just in the comments below, let me know what your top five are. Let me know what you think are the five best Marvel movies in the MCU. And then let me know what other top five lists you want me to put out. So let's see. I'll start with number five. And I feel like this is going to be higher up on some people's lists. But on my list, number five is Thor Ragnarok. Now, I did not think the first two Thor movies were terrible. I enjoyed them. I know The Dark World is probably considered one of the worst movies, and it probably is. It was fun to watch for me, but this isn't a breakdown, but everyone knows what its faults were. But Thor Ragnarok was a breath of fresh air, I think, to the franchise in regards of quality movies and a movie that you'd want to watch over and over. It had multiple characters in there that everyone loved. So obviously Thor was great in that movie. It led directly into Infinity War. I think Hela was one of the best villains that we got. And it's crazy because I don't remember if she got that much screen time, like fighting Thor, besides the middle and the very end. But she was frightening and terrifying to me. Like even those flashbacks with Valkyrie were, the cinematography was great, but also just how it let you know how much of a badass she was in the past with Odin. She was definitely top tier villain for me. Valkyrie was amazing, one of my favorite new characters, and probably one of my favorite characters now in general in the MCU. Who does not love the Incredible Hulk? Whenever you can get Mark Ruffalo in an MCU movie, since I know as of this recording, Marvel cannot make a Hulk movie. So it's kind of like he's getting his own arc in all these movies, but he was great. He was funny. I like how it connected into Age of Ultron. Who else was in this that was good? Loki, obviously. Tom Hiddleston. Loki, another classic character from the first Avengers, who is just an amazing character that I want to keep seeing over and over. So I was glad that we had the Loki series. But Thor Ragnarok to me was just one of my favorites. Had a lot of characters I liked, cool moments. It was funny. And the ending was really, really good to me. It's crazy how you kind of think you get this closure with Thor and Loki. Post-credit scene happens, and then you watch Infinity War, and it's like, damn. So that's number five. Number four, which might be other people's like bottom 20 movies, is Avengers Age of Ultron. Now, I feel like this movie was better than the first Avengers, but I know the first Avengers was the first Avengers, and you can never really top that in regards to hype. But let me take a sip. I just feel like this movie, and by the way, Avengers Age of Ultron is the Marvel MCU movie I've watched the most. I've literally watched this over 30 times. I've watched it 5 times in the theaters, like when it first came out. One time when they put it out for the 10th anniversary, when they put all the movies out. And on DVD, probably like 25 times. It just has, I don't know how to explain it. it might not be a great movie to people, like just watching it and you could pick it apart, but it had great scenes. It just starts off in a battle. It just starts off like that. You know, it's probably one of the fastest movie kickoffs that I could just think of off the top of my head. It's like, bam, the Avengers are there fighting. And they introduced the Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver. And now we see Scarlet Witch is one of the most powerful characters in this universe. And then we had Quicksilver for like 2 hours. And I personally thought he was a better Quicksilver than the Fox Quicksilver, only because to me, he did things. Fox's Quicksilver, to me, it just seemed like he had cool moments. Like those two parts of the movies that were just him doing stuff in slow motion, like saving people. It looked really cool, but I don't really think he did anything. But Marvel, the MCU Quicksilver, I thought was cool. His relationship with Wanda, how he didn't trust the Avengers, how they both didn't trust the Avengers, and then he learned to work with them. His interaction with Hawkeye. I'm sorry, I personally really wish they didn't kill him. So I hope he somehow comes back in Multiverse of Madness. Ultron, he was not a great villain, but when you think of any other voice actor to do Ultron rather than James Spader, it probably would have been a disaster. Just James Spader's voice put so much life into Ultron. To me, it just made him as a villain even better. I mean, I know they didn't fight too often. Like he was off doing stuff like getting the cradle and trying to form Vision, but oh man, I don't know. James Spader's great, and I thoroughly enjoyed his take on Ultron. And the movie, like I said, I watched it over 30 times. It just has great scenes in it. My favorite is when Hawkeye is in that little shack with Wanda, and he's like, if you walk out that door, you are an Avenger. Like, that is one of my favorite scenes of the movie, where she just comes out and kicks ass. So number 4 is Avengers Age of Ultron. Number 3 is Spider-Man No Way Home. And spoiler alert, if you have not seen this yet, but I think most of you have, since it's made a bajillion, gazillion dollars. This movie was out of control. This movie was so good as a movie. This might be, out of these 5 movies, the second best movie, but it's number 3 on my list because number 1 and number 2, to me, just for like my personal reasons, I like them better. But there was so much going on with this movie. I mean, it's funny how we complained about the first 2 movies. Like, no, well, not we. I never complained. I don't need Uncle Ben. But I kind of assumed that he was killed off screen. And after watching Spider-Man No Way Home, I got the impression that Uncle Ben just died off screen. Because, as you see in this movie, Aunt May is the one who says, with great power comes great responsibility. So that was this Peter Parker's death that makes him, quote unquote, Spider-Man. That means Uncle Ben in this universe never said that. That is why I think Uncle Ben just died. But even without the Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield cameos in this movie, it was just amazing. All the villains were great. Doc Ock was amazing. Green Goblin probably was the best of the cameos in the whole movie. William Dafoe was just good in everything. Jamie Foxx, thank goodness they did him so wrong in The Amazing Spider-Man 2. His character was terrible. But I'm glad he was able to redeem himself, and it feels like they kind of let him do whatever he wanted. And I thoroughly enjoyed that. The ending was sad to me. As soon as the movie ended, in my head, I was like trying to count thousands of reasons of how he can make Ned and MJ remember him. And when you really sit down and think about it, it's not too difficult to do. He could easily get back into their life. But I feel like at this point in his life, he doesn't want to put them in danger again, so that's fine. Going into his 4th Spider-Man. So number 3, Spider-Man No Way Home. Number 2, many of you probably would think would be number 1. Number 2 is Avengers Infinity War. This goes without saying. I don't need to go too deep into this. And Avengers Infinity War might be one of the top 2 best movies of the MCU. Like, just in general, the best movies. It's number 2 on my like list. Not because there's anything wrong with it. Everyone knows how great it was. Even though I didn't read comic books when I was a kid, watching YouTube videos, I always read and watched kind of what the Infinity Saga was about. Oh, so going into it, everybody knew Thanos was going to get the gauntlet, and what he wanted to do was snap and wipe out 50% of all life. And you're watching the movie, and you're like, okay, this is little by little, he's getting the stones, he's getting the stones. And we know that Avengers 2 or Avengers Endgame was going to be out the next year. And we all know what's going to happen. Like, we know it's going to happen. But in the back of my mind, at least, I'm like, you know what? Maybe they beat him in this movie and something happens. And in Endgame, maybe he does something in the beginning and then they correct it by the end. But I was really surprised that he won. And it's crazy because I was surprised, but I wasn't surprised because we knew it was going to happen. But once Thor threw Stormbreaker in his chest, you're like, wait a second. Maybe he's going to kill him? And then once he was like, you should have aimed for the head, I was like, okay. And I knew it was going to happen. And then watch everyone dust away. My theater, everyone's theater was probably just silent as mine was. Even though you knew they were coming back, that wasn't the point. The point was you have to look at this as a movie, like as a world. We know they're coming back, but the emotion that the characters give off, they don't know that yet. And when you put it in perspective like that, it was deep, man. I was like, I need Endgame right now because I need everybody back. And yeah, so number 2 is Avengers Infinity War. Number 1 is not Avengers Endgame. Does not mean it wasn't a very good movie. It was. I watched it often. But my number 1 movie is Doctor Strange. And this kind of holds, it holds like, not close to my heart, but like I said before, I did not read comic books when I was a kid. It was, I think the year this movie came out, or the year after, I started reading comic books. And I bought the new run of the Doctor Strange comic. And it was just amazing to me. I just loved the character. I've loved Benedict Cumberbatch since Sherlock. So I've been watching him since that. He's a great actor. I knew a little bit about like Mordo and a little bit about Dormammu. But the movie was just visually amazing. And I know people compare it to Inception. And yes, it's very similar. I've seen Inception a couple of times. And yeah, Inception did like world bending and stuff, but come on, man. You can't watch Doctor Strange and say it didn't improve on that. Some of the visuals in that were ridiculous. Like when the Ancient One was on that platform fighting Caecilius and them, and it's made out of like the subway tiles. Oh my God, that was crazy. And then just watching him in his journey to become Doctor Strange and the Sorcerer Supreme was fine. Like, it's a common movie trope, guy gets hurt, needs to go overseas to figure himself out and learn something from a different culture. Like, it's not the best concept, but I really think it was done exceptionally well. Mordo was amazing. I am still unsatisfied with the lack of Mordo since that movie. They could have put him, he could have been not the new Loki, but he could have just been like a Loki until Multiverse of Madness. Just put him in other shit. He was so good. Caecilius, some people think was a terrible villain. I don't think he was the villain of the movie, even though technically he was. I think it was Dormammu, even though he was in it for like 10 minutes. But, I mean, Mads Mikkelsen is always great. So maybe Caecilius was weak as a main villain. But I mean, the first thing you see him do is like decapitate the librarian in the Sanctum. And people are like, oh, he didn't do anything. Like, he killed a lot of people in this movie. So whatever you want to say about Caecilius, he was fine. Maybe not the best, but Benedict Cumberbatch, I think, is as perfect as Doctor Strange as Robert Downey Jr. is as Iron Man. And you can fight me if you don't believe it. Or think, nah, I'm just kidding. I don't think there's many people who would disagree with that either. Benedict Cumberbatch seems perfect. And it might be rumors. I didn't Google this, but I believe they always wanted him to play Doctor Strange, but he was so busy that they kind of, I think, delayed the movie a little bit until he was ready. You could fact check. Might be on Urban Legend, but that's what I heard. So, so there you have it. My quick top 5 MCU movies, and I'll just run them down again. We have number 5, Thor Ragnarok. Number 4, Avengers Age of Ultron. Number 3, Spider-Man No Way Home. Number 2, Avengers Infinity War. And my favorite movie, Doctor Strange. And I have a feeling Multiverse of Madness is going to supplant number 1. And that's going to knock Thor Ragnarok off of my top 5. So in about 4 months, my top 5 is going to be Age of Ultron, No Way Home, Infinity War, Doctor Strange, and then Multiverse of Madness. All right. Well, that was a really nice around 15 minutes. Did you enjoy my list? Did you agree with my list? I hope you didn't agree with my list because I want to hear it down below. Let me know what your top 5 MCU movies are. Let me know what you consider the best 5 Marvel MCU movies are. And also just let me know what kind of list you want me to do. This page is Plenty of Disney. Marvel's owned by Disney, but I'm planning on doing like my top 5 Disneyland rides, my top 5 snacks to eat at Disneyland. Like, it's going to be all encompassing. So just let me know what you want to see. And until then, please like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and I'll talk to you on my next video, and I'll see you all on Twitter. Peace, guys.